Non, moi, il n'y aura pas de visage de vacances cette année. Bonjour à tous. Good afternoon. Earlier this year, MPs returned to Ottawa for a spring sitting of the House that was set to last 14 weeks. As I said then, these are anxious times for Canadians who worry about what the future holds for them and their families. And that's why we have taken decisive action. Comme je l'ai affirmé en janvier, notre gouvernement est déterminé à travailler fort au Parlement pour relever ces défis. Nous sommes arrivés à la Chambre avec un programme législatif très ambitieux, visant à améliorer la vie des Canadiens et à renforcer notre pays. Aujourd'hui, alors que cette session tire à sa fin, je suis heureux de dire que nous avons tenu notre promesse. Nous sommes fiers de ce que nous avons accompli à la Chambre des communes. Le gouvernement a travaillé très fort pour les Canadiens. Les députés ont adopté quelques 21 projets de loi du gouvernement à la Chambre en 14 semaines. In the spring sitting we are finishing today, MPs passed 21 government bills in the House in 14 weeks. The legislation covers a range of subjects, but two themes are obviously prominent: the economy and protecting Canadians from crime. We have focused on these things because they are what matter to Canadians. Nous avons présenté et adopté des mesures législatives qui renforceront notre économie, créeront des emplois, amélioreront notre compétitivité comme partenaire commercial à l'échelle mondiale et rendront la vie plus abordable au pays. Nous avons également adopté des lois qui modernise le système de justice pénale, protège les victimes d'actes criminels et donne aux forces policières les outils dont elles ont besoin pour faire leur travail. Malheureusement, nous avons dû faire face à de l'hypocrisie et à l'obstruction répétée de la part des conservateurs. What we were up against was repeated hypocrisy and obstruction from the Conservatives. On the one hand, they asked for legislation to assist Canadians to deal with the economic and affordability challenges they face. And when we did that, all too often, they voted against those bills. In keeping with that pattern, they called for legislation to get tough on crime. And when we did that, again, all too often, they stalled, obstructed, filibustered, and ultimately voted against those bills. Simply put, our government is honored by the mandate Canadians gave us a year ago. We are committed to getting things done, and we did that this spring. So here's a summary of the areas where we passed legislation since January. On the economy, there was, of course, the Budget Implementation Act, which includes measures to create one Canadian economy, build new infrastructure, and support Canadians with lower costs. As part of this bill, the government will double the pace of affordable home building over the next decade, make investments to expand our clean electricity grid, provide enhanced incentives for businesses to make investments, accelerate the path to construction of Alto high-speed rail, a game-changing project in Canadian history that will create 51,000 jobs and provide faster train travel from Toronto to Quebec City, and provide meals for up to 400,000 Canadian kids every day annually by establishing long-term, stable funding through the National School Food Program Act. The House will also have passed the 2026 Spring Economic Update, which includes measures to recruit, train, and hire 80 to 100,000 new skilled trade workers by 2030-31. This initiative will provide job opportunities for young Canadians and many other Canadians and attract the workers needed to build more homes and major projects in the years ahead. Our government recognized that Canadians are having trouble paying their bills, particularly when they visit the grocery store. So we introduced the Canada Groceries and Essentials benefit, and it was passed by the House. It provides hundreds of dollars in additional support to help 12 million Canadians pay their day-to-day bills. And recently, the Prime Minister announced the National Food Security Strategy with more than $3 billion in investments. The strategy will build a stronger, more affordable food system. In response to Senate amendments, We applied a final vote in the House on legislation that delivers a tax cut for nearly 22 million Canadians, eliminates the GST for first-time home buyers on new homes valued up to $1 million, and removes the consumer carbon price from law. On housing, we have legislatively established Build Canada Homes as a Crown corporation that will quickly build affordable housing throughout the country. This will create thousands of jobs in cities and towns across our country and help more people find a home. We have also passed legislation to provide $1.7 billion to provinces and territories to implement measures to increase Canada's housing supply. We are boosting Canada's trade diversification strategy with a bill to enable the accession of the United Kingdom to the CPTPP, and there is also a bill to implement a major economic partnership between Canada and Indonesia. These bills are obviously only two examples of our government's broader strategy to develop strong trade ties with nations throughout the world. En ce qui concerne notre programme de lutte contre la criminalité, nous avons pris des mesures pour mieux protéger les Canadiens contre les crimes haineux, afin que toutes les personnes, peu importe leur origine ethnique, leur race, leur religion, leur orientation sexuelle ou leur identité de genre, puissent se sentir en sécurité dans leur communauté et célébrer librement leur identité. Nous avons modernisé le système de justice militaire dans le cadre de notre engagement à le rendre plus équitable et plus transparent. Ces mesures répondent directement aux recommandations formulées dans le cadre d'examens indépendants et externes. Et en réponse aux amendements du Sénat, nous avons tenu un vote final à la Chambre sur un projet de loi qui fournit aux organismes d'application de la loi les outils nécessaires pour assurer la sécurité de nos frontières, lutter contre le crime organisé transnational, stopper le trafic de fentanyl illégal, sévir contre le blanchiment d'argent, démanteler les réseaux criminels et renforcer l'intégrité de notre système d'immigration. Nous avons présenté et adopté d'importantes réformes visant à resserrer les règles en matière de mise en liberté sous caution et à durcir les peines pour les récidivistes et les délinquants violents, à soutenir les intervenants de première ligne et à investir dans la prévention à long terme. Nous avons adopté un projet de loi apportant d'importantes réformes au Code criminel afin de protéger les victimes et les survivants de violences sexuelles, de violences fondées sur le sexe et de violences entre partenaires intimes, ainsi que de protéger les enfants contre les prédateurs. Et en ce qui concerne l'accès légal, la loi C-22, nous avons donné aux autorités policières les outils dont elles ont besoin pour perturber les activités criminelles, enquêter sur les menaces graves et protéger nos collectivités. La Chambre a débattu de cette question pendant plus d'1 an et nous avons choisi d'agir en faveur des victimes de la criminalité. Les forces de l'ordre ont besoin d'outils modernes pour lutter contre ces criminels et on est content de leur avoir fourni ces outils-là. Les conservateurs ont cependant fait obstruction à ce projet de loi en comité. Ils ont joué des jeux partisans inutiles et nous avons donc pris les mesures nécessaires pour que le projet de loi revienne à la Chambre. C'est maintenant chose faite et il a été adopté par la Chambre. So among other bills in the House this spring, we passed an act to improve the security of the Canadian telecommunications system and cybersecurity, Bill C-8. We passed 4 supply bills, which stem from approval of the estimates and provide the funds needed to provide Canadians with the many services that they rely on. As part of our commitment to work in partnership with Canada's Indigenous peoples, we passed legislation to give effect to a very important self-government agreement in the North. And I'm happy to say the House passed a bill I introduced to modernize the Canada Elections Act. This bill will strengthen our democracy by closing channels for foreign funding, banning deepfakes, protecting nominations and leadership contests, eliminating long ballots, and strengthening privacy rules for political parties. In summary, it's been a very busy spring sitting. It's been a very productive spring sitting. And I would like to thank all MPs for the hard work they put in, and particularly the 2 standing behind me, who the 3 of us are the government's House leadership team. Ariel and Kevin put in extremely long hours. And when we all return in the fall, we'll once again, I assure you, have a very busy legislative agenda. Il reste encore beaucoup de travail à faire, nous sommes honorés du mandat qui nous a été conféré par les Canadiens et humbles devant les défis, mais je me réjouis à l'idée de collaborer avec mes collègues députés afin de poursuivre le travail. Thank you.
Minister MacKinnon, I noticed that the forced labor bill wasn't among the list that the House has unanimously agreed to pass as part of this motion. Did you try to get that on there and the Conservatives said no? Or?
No, that bill's just been introduced.
So are you concerned then that leaving that languishing in the House of Commons until the fall could complicate negotiations with the United States and the trade deal, given Trump has directly called out Canada for its concerns over forced labor?
Well, we already have a very world-leading forced labor regime. This only improves it, so no, I'm not concerned.
Est-ce que vous pouvez vraiment dire que vous avez tenu promesse lorsque, quand vous présentez ce bilan-là, il a quand même nécessité 8 bâillons, 2 cette semaine. On n'a peut-être pas fait tous les débats là, pour savoir si ces lois-là ont les conséquences qu'on espère qu'elles auront sur les Canadiens.
Ben, je vous donne un exemple. J'en ai parlé, le projet de loi C-22. On a passé 25 heures en comité, pas toutes productives, on va s'entendre, parce que les conservateurs ont choisi l'obstruction et de parler de n'importe quoi au lieu de débattre. Mais il existe suffisamment de temps en comité et en chambre pour débattre amplement tous les points de vue sur l'ensemble des projets de loi. L'utilisation de ce temps-là, c'est pas moi qui le contrôle. C'est l'ensemble des députés qui le contrôlent. Mais moi, je suis plus que satisfait qu'on a eu suffisamment de temps pour faire le tour de toutes les questions. Les Canadiens ont droit à de l'action. C'est ce que nous avons promis. Et manifestement, avec une telle récolte là, à la fin de la session, nous pouvons dire très confortablement que nous avons livré la marchandise.
You just passed a bill that would contain Madame Arbour's recommendation from her 2022 report to strip the military of its power to investigate and prosecute sexual offenses. But my understanding is it passed with a Senate amendment that there would be a review in 3 years to determine whether or not that law should be repealed. Why did you go through with having that amendment, with that potentially repealing this?
Simplicity.
What do you mean?
Getting it done, rather than continue the ping pong with the Senate.
What was the point of fast-tracking C-22 out of committee, through debate, without any debate at third reading? It was just going to sit in the Senate.
Well, when every day matters in this place, and a legislative achievement matters. The Senate can now take this up as soon as they return, and we send a very, very clear signal that Canada's elected representatives are behind giving what is the last lawful access regime in the G7, it must be said, having the police and other authorities have these abilities to stop sexual predators, child pornographers, extortionists. These are important, and I have found the debate, very similar to debates that have gone on in other countries, but I would note that Canada is the last G7 country to adopt such a regime.
Le tramway de Gatineau est maintenant évalué à 8 milliards de dollars.
Oui.
Est-ce que vous êtes prêt à donner plus d'argent? Puis je pense aussi à la portion ontarienne du projet.
Il y a là-dedans une mise en garde pour tous les gouvernements. Des fois, on tourne un peu trop autour du pot lorsque vient le temps de discuter d'infrastructure. On sait que nous avons passé des décennies à Gatineau et à Ottawa à débattre d'un nouveau lien interprovincial. Les coûts ne font que monter. Donc, on le voit avec le train à grande vitesse. On le voit certainement avec le tramway de Gatineau. Je veux juste servir la mise en garde que nous venons d'annoncer avec Mme Fréchette une entente visant les transports en commun. Il n'y a pas d'autres fonds pour les transports en commun. Donc, toute initiative de fédéraliser un tronçon du projet pour que Québec puisse se départir d'une partie des coûts sera en vain parce que le gouvernement du Canada n'a pas d'autres fonds pour le transport en commun, ne finance aucunement des projets de transport en commun à 100%, nulle part au pays. Donc, je veux tout simplement servir cette mise en garde-là, mais au-delà de cela, je prends acte de ce que Mobilité Infra Québec vient d'annoncer, puis on peut voir une certaine logique maintenant, un peu d'ordre dans le déroulement et le développement de ce projet.
On C-22, the Conservatives said the motion you put forward was the most draconian they've seen in the past decade plus. Is this the status quo? Should this be seen as precedent going forward in terms of how it's going to curtail time for committees to study bills?
Do you remember Peter Van Loan?
Before my time, but I do.
We heard the Secretary of State for Combating Crime yesterday saying they need that legislation
Yes.
to fight foreign entities that are behind shootings in Toronto, including shootings at synagogues. Can you explain why you think you need that legislation to do that?
Well, again, as I said, we're the last G7 country to have a lawful access regime, and there are a number of examples that investigators and others that would be better placed than I to comment. Again, the powers envisaged would be powers that could only be exercised after a judge grants a warrant, and even then, strictly defines what kind of information must be divulged. And so you can expect this to be rare. And in the case of people who are suspected of having committed grave crimes, and we hear stories on extortion. You know, the minister who you refer to is from Brampton. We hear horrifying stories of extortion from that community. And this will give our police forces a limited, reasonable ability to procure information that will make people's lives more crime-free. And we're very, very happy to go about this.
Est-ce que justement, c'est pas un exemple, c'est 22, vous auriez pu peut-être le scinder en deux pour éviter le bâillon?
Vous vous rappellerez que à l'origine, l'accès légal faisait partie de notre ensemble de mesures par rapport à l'immigration, le budget. Donc, c'était la troisième mouture des dispositions pour l'accès légal. Donc, à un moment donné, scinder pour accommoder les points de vue de tous, les conservateurs, et on voit, hein, les conservateurs pas nécessairement unifiés sur cet enjeu-là. Moi, en grandissant, les conservateurs, c'était pour la loi et l'ordre. Là, on voit que les conservateurs sont un peu plus conspirationnistes et les conservateurs de loi et l'ordre doivent se demander si c'est le Parti libéral ou le Parti conservateur qui est plus pour loi et l'ordre au pays.
This is the last sitting day for a number of months until late September at least. And the Prime Minister is not here in question period. He's already missed more than 100 by the Conservatives count. Do you think that is a concern that Canadians are getting a signal that with a majority government, he doesn't feel like he needs to be here?
I think Canadians are going to look at our national men's soccer team today, as the Prime Minister will live. I think the Prime Minister should be expected to be there cheering on our national men's soccer team in Vancouver. And I obviously wish everyone in British Columbia well. This is an incredibly historic and exciting day. And I think every Canadian will understand why the Prime Minister must be in Vancouver today.
What did you want to get done this sitting that you did not?
Pardon me?
What did you want to get done this sitting that you did not?
Oh, how long do you have?
Let's go.
Look, there are a number of things remaining on the order paper, and the government will put forward an awful lot of other measures. We've already provisionally got a full calendar for the fall, but you can expect the broader theme of the economy to be one that continues to be explored.
Why is the government pieces of legislation relating to Indigenous peoples, but you haven't actually passed them? In fact, the Conservatives are the only ones who've passed legislation this sitting related to Indigenous peoples. How do you feel about that?
That's not quite true. We just passed a measure relating to a treaty in the North. We've made significant progress on the Modern Treaty Commissioner legislation. Bill S2 is one that requires more work. We were proud to introduce the First Nations Water Act, and we'll continue prioritizing and working on those bills as the year unfolds.
Why is the government speeding an omnibus legislation containing provisions on pesticide use when health and environmental advocates have raised alarms over those provisions?
Yeah, well, I'm not the best person to comment on the specific provisions, but only to say that all threats to human health are ruled out. We would not use these measures and cannot use these measures if there are health hazards attached to them. And beyond that, I would refer you to the Minister of Health on that issue.
In French, but on C-22, what do you make about the Conservatives' concerns that this gives police, or this gives authorities too much power?
What used to be the Conservatives were the law and order party. As I grew up, that's one of the things that came to define Conservatives. We now have a very real set of criminal justice reforms, bail, hate speech, victims' rights, and treating victims, and of course, giving us the last lawful access regime in the G7. This is a very real set of reforms in terms of criminal justice. What it has met from the Conservatives is this wall of conspiracy theory, frankly, paranoia, that I know many other Conservatives bristle at. But they have found themselves divided and, in my view, on the wrong side of a number of criminal justice matters in this session of the House. And that is a significant now fault line that did not used to exist inside the Conservative Party, or at least the Conservative Party I used to know. I hope that, the conspiracies and the tinfoil hats are something that will fade away over time. But we can now safely say that it is the Liberal Party that's the party that's most clearly for law and order in the country.
Est-ce que l'été sera fait dans cet esprit-là, est-ce que l'été sera fait de discussions avec des élus conservateurs pour qu'ils traversent la Chambre pour le début des travaux automnales? Est-ce que ça se poursuit, cette chasse aux conservateurs? Là?
Je ne suis pas au courant, mais je tiens à répéter, il reste de l'inconfort au sein du Parti conservateur, notamment à cause de ce phénomène conspirationniste